Welcome to today's Friday Live. Our last one, last one of January that James and I will be in, and James is in this one today because it is his live fitting. So,
how you doing, everyone?
No pressure.
Oh, mic's on, good.
Mic's on, yeah.
No one's on drums, so we're going to stay on one screen today. Hope you don't mind. When I start heading data, I'll just put the TrackMan data at the bottom. So, please bear with us. We're trying to do one camera today, so hopefully you enjoy. And you guys wanted to see a very average golfer, so your wish is my command. So here I am.
Yeah, so you don't play very often at all. So
no, very infrequently.
Average rounds a year about 10.
Yeah, 10, 12. It's a combination of just obviously us two being too busy and having two young children. So my Sundays are busy with the little ones. So the objective of today is to find me a driver that I can comfortably try and find the fairway. Whilst I'm not old, nearly 45, I'd much prefer to have a driver that was a little bit shorter, but a fairway finder. I've never really struggled for distance, but actually hitting a few warm-up shots and not having hit a club for about 3 months, my club speed's really tailed off. So, yeah.
Picture towards your stronger ones then?
Yeah, I think so. So objective more on consistency rather than ball speed. So the reason why we're here is because, let me just make sure we're streaming and the volume's okay, everyone. Bear with me. Okay. The best driver I had was a Ping G400 that I had built with a TP, one of the original TPT shafts. Great combination. I literally felt like I could put any swing on that club and I would always find the fairway. The morning of going overseas, I was just taking my club head off, noticed a crack down the back of the hosel, so immediately rushed into the stock room at work, picked up a G420, 410, popped it on the shaft, made sure the swing weight was okay, and then the measured loft. Off on holiday we went. Don't get me wrong, fantastic driver, sounded a bit odd. Again, couldn't feel like I could miss a fairway, but my good ones have always been kind of in 5 yards of Simon. But I was consistently 10, 15 yards behind, and I thought, I've really got to look at this more closely when I get back. So Simon gave me a driver fit about 4 years ago and fit me into a Callaway Maverick Sub-Zero, purely based on ball speed because I wanted to be knocking it past him. Sadly, with the amount I play, my misses can be way left. I feel like here's my driver here. It's a Maverick Sub-Zero, 10.5 degree lofted up 1 degree with a Fujikura Ventus 5 stiff. It's the first time I've had a driver that, don't get me wrong, ball speed is great, but slight off-centre strikes. I really feel like the head's got no MOI, no ability to keep a face angle as punish-free as possible.
Yeah, and I think with that head, what was so good was spin was very good, ball speed very good, but as you say, off-centre, not the most forgiving beast, and that was sort of a little bit of, certainly back then, that was the balance up of gain and loss really, kind of cost and benefit. So, seeing as you've had a good warm up, we'll get a few shots and get a look at what it's doing now.
Right, I'm going to get the excuses in now. Yeah. Last time I played was Oitavos Dunes in, when was that, September?
October.
October, yeah. Okay. So yeah, rusty golf here. So again, this is probably quite a good one. We have lots of people who say, look, I'm coming back to golf, I haven't hit balls for 3 months, when is the right time to be fit? Probably, in my instance, not now, but...
Well, but then it would only be if you start to play a lot more regularly. If you're the instance of your golf through the year stays relatively as it is, this is fairly representative of you stepping onto a tee. You will go a couple of months without playing.
Yeah.
So actually it's not irrelevant, but we maybe pictured at the stronger swings rather than, or picture it when you're timing it better on the off chance you play a little bit more, rather than making it rather than going too user-friendly on the shaft, maybe kind of make sure that they reward you for a good swing rather than try and cover up a bad swing. So it's not irrelevant.
Yeah, so look, I love this shaft. It feels like it loads neutrally, feels like just a very... look, my background is the building of equipment. I haven't a clue what the bend profile of this is. Simon and my relationship is very much doctor, pharmacist. I know what I'm making, but I don't know what I'm making it for. And what I feel from this shaft is very, very smooth, quite a neutral bend profile. It just works for me. Now, whether or not we go through this and we find something that is better, because I mean, since I've been fit, there's more profiles out. It's yet to be.
Yeah, as you say, Ventus's very, very smooth. It's stable tip, so it's still fairly low spin shaft, but it's not a harsh feeling shaft. The blue versus the black is a much harder shaft, much stiffer profile. That's still very stable in the tip end, but it's not too harsh in this sort of mid and upper section, so you can get a little bit of sensation out of the shaft. But most importantly for you, it's not tip heavy.
Okay.
So that's something that, from a swing point of view, the moment we load up the bottom end, that's always hurt you quite badly because the clubhead gets detached and then it rotates open, and that's when the big misses left to right come in.
Yeah, big.
So
big misses.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not expecting to find ball speed because I know when this is good, it's good. But I will happily sacrifice 10 yards to keep it in play. I play a lot of foursomes golf, playing for my old school, and I know that my foursomes partner would rather, given a choice, would you rather be 10 yards further down the fairway or in the left or right or in play? We'd all like a second shot.
Yeah. You can attack the course from the fairway. You can't attack the course from the rough.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, right, I'm just going to switch the camera modes just to have the TrackMan data at the bottom. Guys, any questions you've got, please do. Actually, let me just hit a few of the 6 on just to warm up a bit. Any questions, please do drop them into the comments field. I'll be as honest as I can. Of course, only for the nice questions, that is. God, that's nerve-wracking, isn't it, being live? There's nobody here, though.
Oh, it's all right.
There's nobody here. Nobody's watching.
And so with your game, with your swing, are there anything that you go back to from a swing point of view? That is it more kind of a rhythm side of things?
It's been so long I've forgotten. When I get back to playing a bit, I do have certain things I like to feel. Unfortunately, my pre-shot routine's just got longer and longer and longer because I have all these little things I write down. But anyway, those are my own gremlins. No, I mean, with a really good grip change. I mean, I was very, very strong with my right hand. Had some coaching with Stu because I just felt like I was playing a big draw or protecting the left side. So he said, really, the only way we're going to get through that is a massive grip change. So I've gone to really much more of a neutral grip, which has allowed me to play the course with far more confidence right to left.
Yeah.
So I can now feel that I can aim right of target and it will come back.
Yeah.
But old habits die hard, eh?
Okay. All right, let's see what you got.
Are we good with alignment there?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So one of the things we've always had to take into account for James in particular with his game is from the workshop side of things, very, very strong hand forearm. So in terms of having to grip onto a club head to drill it out, or you're working on that side of things, the hand strength is very, very big. So actually what we don't want is too much. We don't want to let the hands get overly involved because that's where they're quite, for want of a better phrase, they're volatile. If you have a strong rotation and a strong rotation of the club face, it makes it quite a big left to right element to it. So from a club setup, that's where the balance is key, because we want the club to arrive at the ball the same time as James's body rotation, and that takes out the need to manage the club face into the ball.
It's like on a bloody first tee here, it's truth. When I was, the club speed is really down. It was up around 91 when I was
Younger
and less nervous. Bloody blooming heck.
And generally, are you more comfortable being a little more aggressive with the swing? Or would you tend to club up and swing within yourself?
No, always more aggressive. I've found when I've tried to take power off a shot, my linkage just breaks down and it's a miss hit.
Yeah.
But I have more recent, well, when I say more recently, last time I was playing, somebody said to me, if you don't feel like you can hit your irons a club further, if you need to, clubs an iron further, if you need to, you're swinging too hard.
I wouldn't necessarily go along with that, but I think
But what it has made me do
you
is-
don't want to be is on 100% max.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's made me reevaluate actually how hard I'm hitting the ball. Maybe I'm hitting it too hard. Slow it, quiet it down a little bit, concentrate on just natural timing, and
Yeah.
it has improved the strike. So yeah, I would always,
Either that or you're playing for too much distance with the clubs.
Yeah.
And therefore having
Yeah.
to force them to get what you're expecting out of them. I think that's for the other angle to that.
right, just another couple, and then I'm ready for the first tee. A bit thin, but
Now your family has a long history in the game, doesn't it? With a
certainly does, yeah.
going back to
Great-great-grandfather,
Yeah.
assistants to J.H. Taylor. Yeah,
you see it in the
it was
blood.
meant to be. I should get, what's his name, the guy who does family history programs.
Oh, I don't know who those, but yeah, could be an example on who do you think you are.
Davina McCall. No, no. That's not going to get any better. So, okay, right.
Right. See, I was looking at the wrong bit for where the question's coming.
Dan, alien about Dan. If you're planning to get a club fitting that also starts swing speed training, should you have your fitting post the training? A question really more for Simon, but yeah, if you're going to start increasing your club speed, it would make more sense to be fitted with a more representative club
Post the
speed.
training, because I think if you were to do what the training can also do is to affect the sequencing a little bit. So it depends how you go about developing the speed. So the speed on its own, it doesn't necessarily massively change the shaft side of it. It can do a bit, but not necessarily, but it might well change the club head requirements based on, and again, what the linkage is, how you develop it, do you deliver a bit more loft? It will affect technique a little bit as well. So I would always do that, if you can, once you've done the majority of that speed training rather than before. Yeah. So we'll get kind of 3 or 4, get a good base. So Andrew Lloyd, as you've had a ping and now Callaway with your 400, your favourite, are you open to all makes, or would you like to go back to ping if there is
Yeah.
much between clubs?
I'm secretly hoping 430 is the one for me, but look, ultimately I don't care what I play with, is what works, and that's the same for. That's the attitude we have with anybody comes in. We look at different parts of the bag as a mini project. Just because you're a ping driver a ping player in a driver doesn't mean to say you'll be a ping player in fairways. So literally my bag is Callaway driver, ping fairways, PXG irons, which that'll be the next fitting, Mura wedges, even roll putter.
Well, I think the add on to that comment from Andrew, it does play a part in it. If you've got a confidence from clubs you've used before, and you've got to feel comfortable, you've got to feel like you're going to use the club well, and that does form part of an orientation. Think what whilst the products do all perform slightly differently,
Delete that one.
if they are very, very similar, then you know what, the confidence bit, that's the bit between the ears, and it makes a big difference. Okay, get a couple more. So, I mean, the one thing to say with this is the setup is not going to be a million miles off, simply because it's a club that, I mean, you'd hope not, being the fact that it was me who fitted it for him.
I hate it.
But it's not like James has physically changed a lot over the last few years. He's not had any major injuries. He's not made kind of major changes to swing lines and things. So from a muscular point of view, from a sequencing point of view, that hasn't really changed. So we're not looking to reinvent the wheel here, and not expecting to find vast differences. But what we want to do is as much consistency as we can.
Well, that's the best of those ones I've struck. I mean, for me, up around 105 is 105, 106 is as fast as I'm going to get. It's as fast as I really want to be honest.
A little higher on the base, that one. T's just worked out a little bit, but yeah. So I think if I were to take that off, and if we're scrolling through the shots, I mean, what there is a little bit, and some of this is a little bit of a lack of play, is you can see the club face just gets a little bit out of kilter. So getting the consistency of that face to path number, the good one. That was really well hit, a little bit to the right.
You'll see the data on the bottom. You won't see you'll see the shot shape on the screen, but just the numbers at the bottom of your screen.
So when it's good, the one that's currently on there, when it's good, the path and everything squares up really well. That shot was just a hair toe side, so looped a little bit left. And flight and things is in a nice place. I think part of this is it's very, very noticeable with that club head that if it doesn't quite work, you can feel the head deflect a little bit. You can certainly notice
completely.
They miss it massively.
Completely.
And yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see just from looking at where the club face is going. There's a tolerance of you've got less than a degree tolerance on path, but you've got 2.5 on face to path. That's an area where if we can tighten that up a little bit, so that may well be a slight change in shaft setup, or even just a swing weight change, possibly. But I think the more you trust that the head's working for you, you'll relax. And so if you get tight with the hands, it's hard, quick rotations and quick adjustments. Softer your hands are, the quieter the adjustments are, and you should lose a little bit of that left to right dispersion. So
okay.
I'm going to nip off and grab a couple of alternatives. I'll start with the pink because it's one that you're interested in. Let's double check one thing there. Perfect. Yeah. So I'll just talk through whilst I'm growing. I'm going to start with the
involved
430
in the
max and the 10.5
industry who neglect
Maverick.
their equipment the most. So this is the first driver I've had for 4 years. Again, irons 4 or 5 years. So I'll be looking to change my irons probably in about a month. There's one more manufacturer releasing a new iron that I really would like to be in the mix. Again, there's nothing wrong with my current irons, but would just like a change.
So first one I'm going to go to is basically the current iteration of the original TPT shaft.
I was expecting to see an auto cue behind here.
Yeah, no, it's all instinct. Let's check one thing on.
So you can't see it in shot now, but Simon's just swing weighting my current driver. What are we at?
Just under D1.
This is just under D1, and he's just making sure that the G430 he's putting together now with the TPT. What is it? TPT high 18?
Yes, it's the 18 high. So it's 57 gram. So very similar weight to the Ventus Blue here. And the reason I got the high rather than the low, the high is a very, very neutral balance. The low, whilst technically is it's a stiffer tip, the balance point goes more towards the tip end, and I don't particularly want to do that for James. So I'll start, and this is going to swing the most similarly to that original one that you had.
Question from Wheeled TKD. Thanks for tuning in. All the new equipment is out now.
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. Strixon and Cobra.
Of course,
Still
yeah.
waiting for those. So
Okay.
they've all the embargoes have lifted, and we can talk about them now. But the Strixon products and Cobra are both due. Well, Strixon are split a little bit. I think there's a dual timing on when the Irons in the Woods come, but basically end of the month into early Feb.
I just can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tee that down a bit. So measured loft of approximately 11.5-ish.
Almost, actually, the 430s this year look to be a little bit less than they have done in the past. So this one's more like a sort of 11, 11.5, I think. Okay. So observation-wise, watching the swing, first one is always pretty instinctive because you haven't. It's kind of right. Let's see. From a player's point of view, it's generally let's see what it feels like. And looking at that swing, what's nice to start with is everything's pretty nicely in sync through. Didn't look like you had to do anything with it. Slight, face a little bit open, but there wasn't any kind of dramatic save required. So
Head felt good.
worth getting a couple more.
It didn't feel as head didn't feel, the sound didn't feel as hot as Maverick Sub-Zero.
Yeah, it's a much, so Ping have really dialed the sound down this year. They've softened it off quite a lot. From 425 is quite a harsh sound. That was one of the main critiques of the head, consumer-wise, but much softer sound off this head. That sounded well hit.
Look, I'm fully aware there are a few swing tweaks that need making.
Well, not an awful. I mean, so that one's a hair onto the toe side. So the first one was a little bit faded, and the spin was up to 7, a little high. That one a little toe side. So face was actually still a hair open, but you got it a bit out the toe, and that's just geared the spin down, squared it off. So, but again, if we're looking at consistency of delivery line and face to path, very consistent. So really good start with the shaft side of things as well.
And for my own benefit and the viewers, why did you choose the Max over the LST?
To start with,
or the SFT?
we're going for SFT for you. You don't need the drawbars,
Okay.
and actually that'll spin it a bit more. We are still trying to keep the spin on the mid to lower side, and the Max gives maximum forgiveness, and that's really what we're the start point for this is really predictability. So. It gives us a base point to work from. If we need to then take the spin lower, we've got options we can go to. But really taking something that's a very reliable start point, and then we can develop from there.
Shaft feels pretty smooth as well. It doesn't really feel like it's loading anywhere in particular.
No, I think the mid-range, very like the original series, have a very consistent load pattern. The low is a bit stiffer in the tip and definitely feels a bit stronger. Okay, that's a good start. Yeah, good start. So what we can see from this is path very neutral. So for each of those three, you're within 0.3 of a tolerance of 0.0. Very square. Face to path is a little bit open on average.
So plus number is
slightly to the
open.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. So tendency is slightly open, but your contact point is slightly toe side, which cancels it out. So actually very neutral. Not a bad. I mean, that one from a flight point of view, 14 launch, just under 2,100 on spin, very efficient. So that's a good start.
To be honest, understandably, being live video, bit of tension in my arms. It's always gone a little bit right.
Yeah.
When
Anyone's watching. Yeah.
If you don't know,
James is not.
No
like
one's
me.
watching. No one's watching.
I'm a complete show off.
No one's watching.
Love this side of things. James possibly hates it. There's another comment in.
Hope it's nice. Mr. Sung, how are you doing? It's great to change. I change my irons regularly. Support the golf industry. Support your local professional as well.
So, let's just weigh this up just a little bit more, slightly lighter swing weight. I think Peter almost owns more clubs than us, I think. good friend of precision golf, Peter is. So there we go. So just change this one. Again, slight change in the shaft using the Diamana.
Diamana TB50 SR. Bloody cheek. Senior.
Stiff regular.
Ah, there we go.
Stiff regular. In this instance, because we can't have every shaft model, every flex on the wall, you have to take a view at, right, what is a flex that is most likely to be used. What we do know is that flex on its own doesn't have a big difference. You know, between a regular and a stiff and an X, there's 3-4% of the bending of the shaft. So it might make a very small change to the pitch of flight, maybe a hair more spin. But when I say a hair more spin, like 150 revs, so not enough to really negatively affect the testing and the performance. So there are some shafts that have a 4 or 5 gram difference between a stiff and an X, and that is what changes performance. But that's where we take a kind of a broad picture and look at, right, what is the more important flex to have on the wall that's representative to the weight, but we can fit around that as well.
So basically, in layman's terms, is what you're doing is you're fitting to weight, and just flex just follows.
Yeah, absolutely. Some players will respond to a softer flex by relaxing and letting it go more. Others will react to a stiffer flex by hitting it harder because they feel the club's going to stay with them.
So the only thing we've changed here is the shaft. Swing weight is the same.
Yep.
Measured loft is the same. So
Yep.
we've used the head and the loft and swing weight as a constant,
Yep.
length as well.
Yep.
So the only variable is this
Yep.
and the soft bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very high out the toe, that one.
Okay, let's see one more there. So one of the things when I was doing the balancing of it, this shaft swing weighted a little bit lighter, so I had to weight the head up a touch more. I'll watch one more swing and then I'll explain what I think we saw in the first one. Yeah, so this one's a little bit light. So whilst that one looks like quite a nice shot, it from a tracking point of view, that didn't look a particularly pretty swing. The first, with the TPT shaft, you could see you and the club just tracked together and you didn't really have to think about putting the club on ball. The first one, essentially what happened is you overpowered the weight in the bottom end and whipped it underneath, skied it up a little high right, and then overpowered it and dragged it left.
But an interesting thing
on top of it,
and
not actually left.
a massive observation is that I put that first shot down to being a bad swing. And a lot of people think, oh, bad shot, it was me. But a lot of it can be attributed to light or heavy swing weight, shaft weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So don't golfers shouldn't beat themselves up and think, oh, that was an awful swing.
Yeah,
the whole point is to try and negate.
Well, if the club's right, it helps you find a repeatable pattern. So with the couple of shots with the TPT shaft, really solid strikes, and a very, very similar face to path pattern and shot pattern. With that shaft, just doesn't suit you as well. A little bit too light, lost the bottom half a little bit. So you're then having to find impact with the club head rather than just turn through it. And hence whilst you'd take that on the course, but it'd be very hard to repeat. And that's ultimately what getting the right shaft does. So I'm going to get a couple more. So we know we can't go lighter than that TPT and the Ventus.
If you're just joining us, guys, this is my first driver fitting in 4 years. Simon's fitting me for a new driver because the last fit I had, whilst the driver performed and the ball speed was great, I just don't play enough to warrant a Maverick Sub-Zero, which is a better ball striker's club. So the objective of today is to find a head and again a shaft, possibly shaft combination, to just get me on the fairway. Play a lot of foursomes golf, so I want to be nice to my playing partner. So if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comments field.
So just pushing.
And if you're watching us for the first time and you're not subscribed to our channel, please do take a moment now, hit subscribe, like, the notification bell, so whenever we go live again or whenever we release a video, it'll pop up on your device and you won't miss it. So please do follow us, guys. The channel is growing really, really well. subs are going up. It just means we can get more great content to you. And we're off to the PGA show on Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
So we will be going live from the range and from the convention centre, subject to whether or not 4 or 5G is good enough.
Yeah.
But above all the stuff will be on our YouTube channel, which you'll be able to see if you're subscribed.
So going back up a little heavier now. So
Isawa Gold.
Over in Isawa Gold or GLD, depending on what they're. So very, very smooth feeling shaft. Generally provides a little bit of launch. Again, we're not looking to gun flight down for you.
Straight away, that looks like a narrower.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that one's a little bit of a shinier finish. So the visuals. So what you often find is a two-tone shaft. A lot of players will say, "Oh, that looks shorter." So the visuals can affect your kind of perception of how the shaft might play.
It looks a lot narrower there than the others. I mean, it might be a little bit.
It can be a little bit. Yeah, it won't be by very much. The differentials on shaft diameter are very, very small.
That felt good.
Yeah, so a little bit more weight in the club, and you can see you can use the weight a little bit more. I'll come back to that question, it'll go on very shortly. So what we can see is...
That felt a little bit low on the face, but it felt a good solid strike.
But what we can see is ball speed. That's already put 10 yards on that straight one with the Diamond TV. So for a swing that you would say wasn't great, it's still a pretty strong result. So you'd need that little bit of weight to use in the swing and to drive against and respond to. Okay, not bad. Not the best. A little higher on the face strike-wise, but we're back into having a much more stable face to path now. Okay, I'm gonna
really. I mean, the depth of my feel isn't great, but I can't really feel too much between that and the TPT.
Okay, you're getting very smooth loading shafts, both of them. So going back to Little John Boy's question, when's the right time to change clubs? Was fitted in 2021 after starting playing regularly for the first time. Ended up with B21 irons, handicap down to 17. Are these coming to the end of life? It's a hard one to say for certain. Chances are if you've improved a reasonable amount and your swing strength has increased, then how you deliver the club will have changed a little bit as well. They're not necessarily at the end of their life. I mean, when you look at Monty we've worked with over the years, some of the club heads he's used, people would gain improvement, but he got to world number 2 using them. So you won't find a forgiving set of irons will stop you improving. It's more whether you've outgrown the shaft weight and overpower them.
We've got a set of Monty's heads in a display case in our reception, some of the big Berthas that he used in the match where he beat Scott Hoke, wasn't it?
Yep.
And every time he comes in, he looks at them, and I think he's tempted to break the glass and put them back in play.
So I just want to push dead weight up a little heavier than the Ventus, just to double check that. And there was another comment after that. Oh, Peter, what new clubs to look at? Well, Peter happens to be coming in on the 11th of February to look at some new irons. So we'll have a good test out that day for Peter. Okay, halfway between. So the shafts so far have all been just under 60 grams. So this one's just pushing just over 60. So going to the speed at NX.
Fujikura speed at NX, 60 stiff. It's about a 6-second delay between this and what you're seeing on your screens.
So very even weight profile, very smooth loading shaft. Speeder NX has been very successful actually. Sometimes actually the heavier weights almost a little bit more so, but it's great quality materials.
So we're going to find the shaft and then switch to a different head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because without getting the club to the point where you can deliver the head consistently, you're not getting true data from the head. That's my opinion on it. That's just the way I go about it. Okay, so a little higher. Okay,
Felt
watch one more.
lighter to swing.
Okay. And this is where it's actually quite interesting. Where
Was it?
we all no, it's heavier. We all we all feel
What do I
things
know?
differently. But
Told you my
but
feel was
actually,
awful.
yeah. So we all have sort of different. Well, I've got different languages for feel. So where James said that I felt lighter to swing, that's probably because there's a bit more weight through the shaft. So the prominence of the head weight's a
Okay.
little less.
Yeah, got it.
So whilst it is heavier, it can make sense why you might think it feels a little bit lighter to move because the bottom end's proportionally less in the whole club.
Oh my word.
So the moment we kick over 60 grams, what happens is the first one went right.
That was a
So
bad swing.
if I go back to the previous shot, you can path half a degree out to an angle attack half a degree up, very, very neutral delivery line, club face 6 degrees open, or best part of 6 degrees open. Hit pretty well. And then that second one, you squared it back up more, but what's happening is that when it gets heavy, the club gets behind, works, and so the first one had the face open there, and the second one you worked under, skied it.
So it wasn't me.
So it wasn't you, no. So we need to keep it just sub 60 from a grammage point of view. And so from a fitting point of view, you've got to do that. You've got to find out what are the top and bottom limits. So we know the Ventus is going to be very, very close. So, but dropping a few grams from that went too light, and going 3 or 4 or 5 grams heavier than that is too heavy. So we've got quite a narrow window to work within. So we're just going to dial into a couple of different shafts in that. So look at balance point as well as sort of marginal dead weight. So because of the speed, we still want a fairly stable shaft from a spin profile point of view.
Hang on, I'm just going to do something.
Who knows what he's up to? Quite glad I don't understand the technical aspects of the production side. I'm a relative caveman when it comes to that stuff.
Hang on. You there? Oh, it's not working. Oh, don't worry.
Right. So the Acra RPG
TZ
LBP.
RPG 352 M3, which is the reg.
So
Now,
the Acra shafts play stiff to flex.
but I quite frankly, I don't really care what it is. I know that flex is actually really quite irrelevant. Well, it's not irrelevant, but the weight is far more important. But
well, I mean, so the regular flex with a lot of the Acras play more like a stiff, and most other shafts are the same weight. So, so it's all relative. But what I've done with this one is push the balance a little more down the tip end of the shaft.
okay. That last shot, Tom, wasn't me. It was the shaft. Yeah.
Okay.
It felt solid.
Yeah.
It did feel solid. That felt as if it did. Okay, I thought I was expecting it to go more left than that, but
You might have caught it on the heel side a little bit, which saved it slightly.
was it the shaft?
So, similar to the heavier weight, what we've now got is a situation where shift the weight too much down the bottom, and it's not that the whole club's behind, it's that the bottom end gets behind. So the first one you had to wrap it around to square it, and the heel strike stopped it hooking a little bit more. The next one, club head got late, went right. So again, you've got a tolerance of 4.5 degrees on face angle there. So your action is quite sensitive to balance point, to anything.
I'm a sensitive kind of guy.
Anything too low in the too much towards the club head from a weighting point of view, or total weight too heavy, forces you, like we were saying earlier, to have to rotate and have to flip your hands over to square it up. So a couple of the comments. Peter Green, 52-year-old, relatively new golfer. You say not that fit or flexible, that means normal. Is it better to get my ball striking more consistent first before getting fitted and or play practice more? Play practice more, you can always argue for that. Is it better to get the ball striking more consistent? Well, some of that might be the equipment you're working with. It could be partly technique, it could be mobility, but it also, if you're fighting the clubs, you're going to struggle to get the ball striking more consistent. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg thing where we get people come in who actually we can make a vast difference to their ball striking with the equipment, and then you can improve quicker. I would say from a fitting point of view, if it's somewhere that can give you a balanced, objective opinion on what the most important thing to do next is, rather than just trying to get you into new clubs, then you can say, right, actually we could achieve X with the clubs, but Y with the player, whether it's fitness, whether it's technique, and then take a balanced view on, what, we've got a reference marker, give it 6 months, play a little more, come back, or actually say we can make a really tangible difference now. It's not a definite yes or no answer, sadly. It kind of depends what you're playing with as to how much is achievable now with the clubs, or worth doing now with the clubs, or how much is then down to the player. It really is every different person is going to be slightly different in terms of what the right thing to do is.
I guess it's like going to a doctor and saying, I'm ill, what's wrong with me?
Well, I mean, Stuart upstairs would say, get your clubs sorted first,
yeah, okay.
and then he can work his magic with a swing point of view, whereas we would often say, well, yes, if your technique's relatively stable, now we're all more consistent than we think we are, but if your technique's relatively stable, we can do something with the clubs as well. So it kind of depends where you are technique and clubs-wise as to what the next bet is. So you can never be definite and say, yes, you need to do that next, without seeing someone in their clubs. So I'm going to get rid of the couple of items we don't want, and I'm going to get the Ventus back in there.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Any questions you've got, not just on Driver Fit, but any of the other services we offer, just pop a note in the comments field below. And even if you're watching after this broadcast, continue to ask questions. We still get the notification. We'll always get back to you, even if you're watching this in 2 weeks' time.
So which is a very interesting comment made by Peter. So Peter, we know well, he had a bit of nerve damage, and so his right arm doesn't function fully. So actually for Peter, he's where we say James is sensitive to weighting, Peter is remarkably sensitive to weighting because his musculature in his right arm doesn't fire the same way. So the club has to find the slot and just to follow the body rotation through because he can't force it back.
And even more so recently, we've had a couple of single and double leg amputees in who are even more susceptible to shaft weights because obviously they don't have the ability to keep a stable base.
Anything from whether it's an injury, whether it's if you're left-handed playing right-handed, it all affects what the club's got to do to help you deliver it consistently. So whether able-bodied, disabled, swinging with one arm, right-handed, left-handed, the club and the weighting and how it moves is really, really relevant.
High toe.
The reason I'm laughing is Peter's brother Tom has asked, can you be too addicted to new gear? Asking for a friend. I have no idea what you mean, Tom, or who you mean. I think the answer is yes. Well, yes and no. I mean, look, if your thing is golf clubs and you want to keep buying golf clubs, fine. What you're not going to see is year on year, you're not going to see continual improvements or a big enough improvement to make it really worth making a change. So, for example, this year, TaylorMade have finally said, we're not expecting someone who bought the Stealth to buy a Stealth 2 because it's a very small incremental gain. This is aimed more at someone who's got an M4 or an M5. Better strike.
That felt good. That did
So
feel good.
it is smaller differences year to year now. Okay, good ball speed on that. So, okay, let's see one more with that.
But when you said TaylorMade finally said we're not accusing them of being the only ones.
No.
Finally, somebody has said that that the laws of physics dictate there's only so much you can do with the face.
Absolutely.
Let's
yeah,
look at
yeah.
other areas of clubhead design to give golfers more enjoyability. Is it a word?
Enjoyment.
It is now.
Enjoyment. Well, I can coin it.
Yeah, enjoyment.
But yeah, I think it's all the brands have been guilty of it within reason, of claiming big gains. I think if one of the pro golfers had achieved the gains every year that the manufacturer played, had claimed he'd have been hitting at 450 yards. So that they're all guilty of exaggerating what's doable.
Man, I'm getting old. Where's my carry distance gone?
Well, that one had a little less spin. But I think now they're all saying it's about consistency of performance rather than hitting another 20 yards. Interestingly with that, going back to it, I think the other shafts are a little more consistent. It still moves well. The good one's still really good, but you're just having to work the head a little bit more to square it. So.
Mavic Sub-Zero and Ventus 5 for sale. DM me. Do your deal.
So Tudor Green got a second-hand set of Cobra T rolls with graphite reg shaft irons. What's around locally? I don't know whether it's a statement or a question, but if there is anything you want me to answer regarding that, just drop another message in and I'll answer it.
Limited as left-handed, so local pro shop driving range not got to try. Well, there is a left hand.
Is tough.
Yeah, left hand, but there are some local left-handed equipment specialists, so that's probably your best bet.
Yeah, and stuff actually at the moment with any of the new models. For example, in a couple of the demo packs for the new clubs, there are no left-handed products. So when the launch date comes, when they release product for retail, then we will then get the infills of other lofts and other, say left-handed products that we can then utilise to test with. But unfortunately, there is still very, very little in the demo packs for left-handers. So it is a tough bit for lefties to get a hold of equipment to test as soon as possible. So I'm just having a little look at the averages. So interesting.
Let me just quickly switch to the TrackMan screen whilst we're.
So looking at these.
2 seconds. Okay.
I'll talk a bit about what we're looking at. So if you've got on the bottom here, the averages with James's Callaway and the Ventus, and so you can see spin's nice and strong. Ball speed efficiency pretty good, pretty solid. Where we can see with the TVT, there's the typos are because the keyboard being tuned into it is not me typing 3 E's on that. But I'm going to blame it on tech. It's not quite as low on spin, but we can see ball speed's up. So club speed, half a mile an hour difference, but a little bit more ball speed. 6 yards, 7 yards carry, 6 yards carry. So a little bit of a more stable ball flight. And just squared the face up a little bit better. So tolerance on, you can see with the bottom one, tolerance on face to path with James's Gamer driver at the moment, 2.5 degrees, and then half a degree with the TPT shaft. So that from a left-right dispersion is much, much better. I'll scroll up to the couple. So we've got, going back to the Ventus Blue, again we can see a 2 degree tolerance on face to path. So with that shaft, we're just seeing him having to work it a little bit harder. And I'm going to scroll back down here. So the couple of shafts I want to go back to, the Oban, the Osawa Duo Gold or GLD, and the TPT, both pretty tight tolerances. The small number on the bottom half of those is the tolerance either side of the average. So pretty tight tolerance on face to path, squaring up a little bit more easily. Very similar spin and launches and ball speeds. There's 0.3 of a difference in total distance. So both swinging more easily. I want to go between them just to double check the, now having gone through the shafts and sort of eyeballed the best couple, just to see which one, given another few shots with each, does move best, is the more consistent. And then
club speeds remained pretty similar. It's not a case
in the same weight range.
As I've swung more, my club speed's gone up.
No, and we're not going to see vast differences because we're in the same ballpark from a weight point of view. We're not changing that much about the setup. It's more where the weight is that allows you to deliver the club a little bit more efficiently.
Chris S, thanks for your question. Curious about your thoughts on driver length. Manufacturers use 45.5 inches as standard. What is the driver length you fit as standard?
Unless we can help it, we do not go over 45. So average on tour for the majority of the last, God knows how many years, has been 44.5 to 44 and 3/4. There's a reason the best players in the world don't play longer than 45 because it's hard to hit. And it's hard to keep strike consistency and it's hard to keep dispersion consistency. So if you're asking your average 18 handicapper to play a harder to hit driver than the tour guys are using, and over the years we've pretty much always seen you may squeeze a little bit more club speed out of a longer shaft, but what tends to happen is that the strike goes, so the ball speed drops, or the strike loss worsens the efficiency of the ball flight. So you might gain club and possibly even ball speed, but because the strike goes off, you lose efficiency and you definitely lose control. So we're more likely to go down to 44, 43 3/4 as a driver length. We'll often do 44.5 because none of us play for a living and none of us practice hard enough, or very few of us practice hard enough.
Who play for a living, eh?
And so to find strike's king when it gets to these clubs, you know, they're all long enough to generate lots of speed. Most people hit their 3-woods better because they're 2 inches shorter. So when your driver shaft lengths went up, going back to things like the Titleist Aero Burner, went to 46 inches or over, completely unplayable for the average amateur, and they very quickly drop back down in length to 45.5. So you get the odd player like Will Zalatoris, who's known as one of the best ball strikers on tour, which is why he competes at all the majors. He went to 45.5 at the US Open at Torrey Pines to gain distance, but he's incredibly straight. So there are times where, and we're seeing shafts this year that are lighter and a bit more stable, that might facilitate a slightly longer shaft length to generate more speed, but you're only going to go to that route if you're really straight. And you can afford to lose a little bit of dispersion to gain a bit of distance. So we would generally fit on average, between 44.5 and 45.
We do go as low as short as 43.5 for some.
Yeah,
With no trade-off in distance because the player is able to swing more freely. And often, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't necessarily see all the things that happen in the fitting bays, but people have picked up distance going shorter because they can hit it with more confidence.
Well, there's that, but you might drop ball speed, but if you're improving strike, the flight's more efficient, you achieve better run out, you're hitting it straighter, so it's going to roll out. If you hit it in the rough, it stops. So, as you were saying earlier, if you give up potential of 10 yards, but you're hitting that 10 yards, that slightly shorter optimal length based on club speed dropping, if you're hitting that distance more regularly and straighter versus spraying it, then it's a better end product. So, to give up, for half an inch, you're looking at 1 or 2 miles an hour club speed, you're looking at 3 odd miles an hour ball, 5 yards. But that half an inch can often be the difference between delivering the head, finding the right bit of the face, delivering it square, and spraying it.
So we've gone back to the TPT high 18.
Just going to do, a few with this and a few back with the Open, just to get a bit more data with each, to get a bit of a broader set of numbers to compare.
High toe.
Got a little bit stoned. Toe side saved you a little bit, so you got the face a little bit open.
Okay.
So for me, the first of those two was a little bit of just a slightly dodgy swing. Looked like you got a little bit, just pushed the handle towards the club, towards the shaft. No, just looked like a bit of a dodgy swing. But in terms of, we all make bad swings, and as a move, it looked like got a little bit, just pushed the handle towards the ball and then just overcompensated a little bit. So just literally just free it up. Don't worry too much about how. Just
Nobody's
2 turns in a swing. Don't overthink it.
Nobody's watching.
Okay, I'm going to put that open. And things sometimes what works well first time round, and this is why we've got to go back to some things sometimes. What can work really well first time round, once you've hit other products, actually by hitting the other ones, it proves it's maybe not as optimal as we saw first time. So it'd be interesting going into the Oban how this performs. Because if anything, that looks slightly light. And we're seeing club speed just creeping up a little bit from the first batch of hits. So as you've hit a few more, you're getting, having done no swings in the last couple of months, you've now got a few under your belt, getting a little more positive with them. That might well be the difference between the two shafts.
Okay. Faz, our software developer, how you doing, buddy? Thank you for tuning in from Bulgaria. Good man. Andrew Lloyd has said, I went to PG and got fitted with a Sim 2D driver, but could not hit it with the length of a standard driver, so I had the length of a 3-wood. Favourite club in the bag?
Yeah, and it's and that's a perfect example of where sometimes in here there's no consequence and the swing frees up a little bit, and actually then shortening it down a bit. Just put the tee down a touch, shortening it down a little bit. It doesn't mean the components are wrong, but actually then just tightening them up a little bit, shorter length just makes it easier to use. A little bit out the, just a little bit out the toe. Didn't quite, looked a solid move, didn't quite sound middled, but this is a key thing here. And going back to what James said at the beginning, you want something that lets him get away with it. Well, that one was a slight missed strike, but it's still 268 down the middle. So the clubs just help to bring the ball back into the centre line. It's not flared the spin up. Yes, you dropped a bit of ball speed, but it's really helped maintain performance.
And it's gold.
That's gold, yeah. Especially a Spandau Ballet fan.
Oh my word.
That's tee height. It's just leaving the tee too high.
It's bronze. Can we switch that? Can I switch that? Maybe
just screw it in a little bit more. That's just screwed down a bit more. Yeah. So tee was a little high, so it just popped up.
Wasn't me. No, I'm trapping it now.
I think there's a bit of overthinking going on here.
Who overthinks golf?
Swing line, absolutely
No
dead
one
down the line.
overthinks golf.
Just let's just pop the tee up going as it caught like this. Yeah, just needs to screw in a little bit. Just it vibrates.
It's interesting, actually. I thought that was trappy, but it wasn't. Okay.
I do what I might switch head on this. Again, the line of the swing, the path, face to path, still very repeating. So.
Okay. Why does fairway end golf? Oh, I fell off my feet then.
So I'm going to give you a little bit more head weight. I'm just going to increase swing weight just a fraction. Just a fraction. So again, I like the lines it's going on. It's just losing the club head at the bottom very slightly. So I'm just going to increase swing rate by half a point.
Half a point is, which did you put on?
That little bit.
Okay, so I don't know if you can see, this extra little bit of lead tape is about a centimetre squared that Simon's put on. Hold it in your hands and you really wouldn't feel it as being a
half a point's a gram. I mean, literally all it is. It's but a gram at 103 miles an hour is a lot of momentum. And we've already seen for you in terms of moving the weight around that how much a small amount can change your delivery pattern. Still not quite there. It's not quite. It's very close, but still not quite there. So as you've hit a few more and warmed up, club speed's creeping up. Just need a marginally different change from the shaft.
See this can see the cogs whirring.
Yeah, I think just in terms of, because I know I don't want to go tip balanced, because I know that's going to get stuck, but that's just not quite dropping in.
Simon knows my game well enough to know if it's a sub-optimal swing.
Yeah, we can see kind of the delivery lines. I'm just going to normalise and go back to that vent. So just now the club speed's up a little bit.
Man, you and me, we are trending. Got 31 viewers live.
Oh. So what's quite interesting is whether, as you've hit it, so earlier on when you're kind of 102 to 103 mile an hour club speed, that's when those other two shafts work quite well. Now you're up a little bit in club speed, is whether actually going back to that, does that start to play better for you at the stronger swing speed? So, and this is where when, someone like James, who hasn't played an awful lot, we have to think about, are we pitching it for the swings where it's replicating having played a little bit more, or do we pitch it at the swings that are a little bit quieter and, effectively examples of having not played for 2 months? Yeah, so
Felt good.
Stronger swing
Just felt good.
that you're now putting on. Okay, slightly open, that we can deal with.
Yeah.
Stronger swing, time better with that shaft, which is sort of more in line with that. So where we're up in club speed from where you started at,
Yeah, but
that moved
two miles an hour.
Yeah, but it's still, it's 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just a little bit of a stronger move down. So where you weren't, there was a touch less strength to the swing. The kind of slightly lighter shafts came with you and helped to square it better. Now you're driving at it a little bit more and committing a little bit more. That all of a sudden looked neater.
Kind of a related question from Wheels TKD. As James warms up through with more of these drivers hit, when James goes to the first tee, wouldn't he have hit so many to warm up? Would that alter the options?
And this is really where you've got to think about how much does someone play. What we've got to take into effect is how little James has played to this point. So since October, literally nothing.
Yeah,
So-
one sim evening.
So the
24,
earliest
24 stable points through 9 holes.
Yeah, Sim King. So the earlier
What'd you call me?
swings are almost unrepresentative for the difficulty of someone like James, where he doesn't play during the winter and then plays a bit more in the summer. What I don't want to set the club up for is the swings where he hasn't played for 3 months, because actually then it doesn't reward him for the better swings when he's loosened up and the weather's warmer. It's an interesting point. For someone who's playing the amount they would always play, if you play kind of once a fortnight, we can see very quickly where we need to pitch things. For James now, I'd be more inclined.
That felt good.
I'd be more inclined to pitch things for the stronger swings, simply because they're not brutally different than the earlier ones, but it's a slightly more committed. I'm going to put a slightly different head on. It's just a better move through the ball. It's a little bit of a stronger move through the ball.
And I did generally find, maybe it was due to head design on this one, that whenever I play with this, I'd start getting hold of it midway through the back nine, and then I only enjoy it for about 2 or 3 holes.
Okay, let me get a couple of other heads.
Sorry? Excuse me. How are we doing for time? That's fine. People can switch off if they get bored. God, I can't think of anything worse than watching me swing for an hour.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, just switching head style, going to paradigm now.
We have had a few comments about the request to see more regular swings being fitted, which we will do. It just so happens that the only people that have been available to do Friday Lives have been coaches or professional golfers, or those without children who have more time to play.
So going to Paradigm. So again, really focusing on the heads that keep the weight back a little bit, keep a bit of forgiveness. The one thing looking at those last couple of hits with the ping head is the good ones are good on spin, but the ones that go right just spin up a little bit more. You can argue for that being a good thing from a safety net point of view.
But you wouldn't go LST?
I don't think so, no, because if you do get it a little bit toey, we don't want it knuckling.
Okay.
So it's more about keeping the spin in a safe zone. For you, if you get the toe turning in and toe strike it, it really falls through the floor.
And these days I fear the left of the course rather than the right.
So, and that's where the Maverick, the Sub-Zero, has been a bit brutal, because if you get it a bit toey, it takes all the spin off.
Okay, so Paradigm with the Ventus Blue 5
Matt said
stiff.
James just hit it harder, only another 100 yards to go.
I haven't got the bleep button to hand, unfortunately.
No, swear jar.
God, I've got a swear jar. Whew. Oh, man.
See one more. And this is where with the different heads, I might have to tweak the swing weight slightly. So I may have to make this, just make sure that T hasn't popped out. I may have to make this just a fraction lighter, but we'll see. I'll see one more.
I knew it wasn't me.
Yeah, I'm going to make just a fraction lighter. Just a fraction. So good for spin. It's still just hanging a hair open, but I'm going to just take a little bit of weight off that. That's a follow-up comment, but I don't know what it is.
Everyone can see.
Yeah. I've not read that. I still take that down a fraction, just a little, just a fraction, just a light turn. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, this is a little high tone. So it's taking half a swing weight point off. So where, for example, Callaway have got the very, very light composite in the crown and the sole, it moves the weight a bit further back. It can actually, to get them feeling the same to swing, you sometimes have to have the two heads slightly different swing weights to get consistent. Let's go on that right a little bit. Okay, so that's probably doing is by separating the weight more, it's potentially gearing it around a little bit, it's finding it harder to square up. So I'm going to go to a head that's a little less exaggerated from a weight point of view. So it's a bit like putters. If you put a lot of weight at the back, as you accelerate, it actually pulls the head round and open a little bit.
A very interesting observation. Just if I was pretending I was the customer, I'd be thinking, oh, but I'm putting bad swings on. How can the fitter be fitting me accurately if I'm not swinging correctly? But what you're saying is actually this is good data because you're seeing things with your experienced eye.
Yeah,
helping you.
It's things that down to, if you think for the construction of the Paradigm, it's a very, very light composite band here and across here. So the weight's separated a little bit more than some of the other heads. The Max head doesn't have the composite crown that the LST does. So actually with this, the weight sits around a bit more. So as that accelerates, that happens a bit more. So that shot makes sense with the head that we've gone to and why we've sometimes why we've sometimes got to go to different constructions with different players.
Never had it, Eads. Wasn't me. Take the mic off and you can sing it if you want. You're what? Sorry, you're what?
So for something construction-wise that is less exaggerated, going to one of the Titleist heads, TSR2. So again, using the 2 to keep a bit of stability in the weight back, but it's not got composite crowns. It's not quite so exaggeratedly weighted front to back.
question that is asked quite a lot is there an opportunity for me to hit loads of balls before my fitting so I get warmed up? It's not necessarily a good thing.
No, not a good thing at all, because we have time whilst we're running through the specs of the clubs at the start of the fit where someone can loosen up, but we all have a finite amount of swings. So most people, it is somewhere between 70 and 100 max. As you go above that, then performance starts to tail off. So on a full bag fitting, we'll most of the time get to 100 swings. But if you've hit 50 balls to warm up first, you actually swung yourself out. So it is not the best idea. Whilst in principle it makes sense, it's not necessarily the best idea to go and hit loads of balls before a fitting.
That felt lively.
A little bit of a higher pitch now, it's still a little bit open. Okay.
I do feel like, I mean, obviously, everyone can see the shots are going right. It does feel like that.
Yeah.
Just trying to give myself a feeling of just being on a tee and...
Swing line square.
I'm not standing closed, am I?
No.
Okay. I just might use my hands to pull that left.
Work that one over. Okay, no, that's fine. So I'm actually going to go back to the ping and just change where that weight position sits. So pull the weight into in principle, the draw setting, just to pull the CG a bit more into the heel. Should help it square up a little bit more easily.
Always the arrow, not the archer, Peter. Going anywhere this weekend?
See my parents tomorrow morning, and then pack. I think most of the afternoon will be that. Hopefully not have to hot fit it over here to pick up something I've forgotten. So just gone back to the 430. What I've done with the 430, I've just moved the back weight. Because the face is hanging a bit open, just move the back weight into the heel.
So we've gone... Was I hitting the reg?
Yep.
Really? Okay. So what, a couple of grams lighter than the stiff?
No, about 1 gram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's low left again.
So that to me looks like one you worked over.
Okay.
They look like you got a little bit of a whip around. I think you just keep those hands and arms nice and freed up. You really just let the club swing, let your hands and arms follow your body turn through. You're interested in going back to it, it didn't go right the first one, which has been the first miss with anything else where it's not worked out.
Feels like a lower flight.
That one got a little bit lower on the face. That one you hit down on a little bit more.
Okay.
So angle of attack's got a little bit down onto it. So just squeezed it a fraction. So how much does grip thickness and its weight come into it? The answer is weight quite a bit. Normally when you're going up to something like a mid-size, that's when the weight starts to have a big impact, because they can be, it's a better move, they can be as much as 10 grams difference. Yeah, so that one you could see you really soften your hands off and just let the club come through, and then we're back into a very slight draw pattern. You know, path one from the inside, face to path close down a little bit more, 1.5, just 2 degrees. So a bit of a draw swing. But from me watching you swing, that's where your big muscles have done the job and everything else has followed it. The other swings are where your hands are almost feeling for the shot a bit, whereas actually you didn't need to. But the other bit that I quite like about that is club speed on the stronger club speed. So it's a stronger move, but that's stayed nice and stable. So going back to this, it's getting away from the miss being to the right. So just to go back to that grip question, some of the mid-sizes can be as much as 63, 64 grams, but a standard grip's 50. So you really, really must take that into account. So if someone like James, if we were to shift the dead weight of the grip significantly, it's really, really going to affect his timing. So Healy, I'm going to go fractionally heavy on the swing weight. Again, moved. You've got next to 15 grams in the back there. We moved into the heel. Might just have to counter that very slightly. And this is where if you get a player whose hands can get quite dominant, you have to. There has to be enough to hit against, but they can. This is one of the things from a driver fit is where there are very, very, very slight nuances. It can get to a point where I can see James reacting to the shots in front of him, almost sort of getting a little bit tight, a little bit flicky at it, rather than just.
Chaps said I did look close, but don't forget the camera is actually behind my feet, looking across.
Yeah.
So it is going to accentuate.
And part of it is actually for part of James's setup, for him to get a neutral path and to neutralise the upper body line. His lower body often is a hair closed with his feet. So.
Oh, I got underneath that.
A little bit of a steer. That's the hang on with the left hand. So this is where we're starting to see natural instinct. Well, and actually just you're overreacting to things. We're starting to lose just 2 turns and a swish. So you can see your feeling of a shot rather than just so. The more relaxed and freed up the hands can get, the more that's where say if you're forearm dominant because of what you do work-wise in the workshop, then they can get over-involved, and actually just trying to switch them off is the key thing. We're not losing consistency of path. That's really stable. Relax your hands down, ball speed up, and there it is down the line again. So what I can see head-wise, this is definitely giving you a more consistent delivery when you allow yourself to make it that way. The other heads were definitely seeing more of a miss to the right. Part of it might be psychosomatic, that you like the head, like the idea of the head, and maybe relax into it a bit more. But what we saw with some of the earlier swings with the other clubs, other club heads in particular, there was a bigger miss to the right. This one, in terms of what we're seeing, is your tendency to get slightly toe side on the strike, very slightly open on the face, is giving you very, very consistent direction. When you get that combination, very consistent direction, very consistent spin numbers as well, without creating a knuckleball. So it's because you like being more positive with the swing. That's where the swing works. It's just the key thing for you from a swinging point of view. Yeah. So just turn the loft down a little bit there, but it's just that little bit of a draw pattern. The key thing for James from a swing point of view is switching hands off. It's just difficult if everything you do work-wise is hand dominant. You get it with people who kind of lay carpets or any kind of woodwork where you're working tooling and using the hands and forearms a lot. They're used to being involved and used to being dominant. So it's actually kind of the more you switch them off, the straighter your shots get. But absolutely, that head's giving you the most stable ball speed, spin consistency. In the launch angle, the more you relax, the more that launch angle will tighten up a little bit.
Worth looking at Stealth 2?
Or pop it on as a comparison, but I think looking at what we did with the Titleist and the Callaway, Stealth 2, again, you've got that very, very light central section, weight move back. I'm not certain, but it's worth a look. It's worth
You're the doc. Again, not just with Simon, but all of our fitters. If you come for a fitting and a fitter doesn't pick a particular head, I don't think for one reason it's been overlooked. It's because the product may not necessarily be suitable for that individual.
Grab a screw.
And there's no point in wasting good swings on inappropriate product.
was sorting them out here, I dropped an extra screw into one of the other boxes. So. So I think the reason why, yeah, ironically, have been consciously trying to see if we can move away from that Ventus if there's a better shaft. Actually, it's still the one I quite like for you because it lets you be positive with the swing. You know, as you always said, your swing doesn't work when you back out of it and steer it. But I think, you know, if part of it is particularly driver, we can get the hands softened off.
So could I put that 5S into a new head, or would you want me to drop to the reg?
No, it's still going stiff. As I said, that again, because of what this stuff will do a little bit at your kind of speed as well is a mishit. It's just going to hold on a little bit tighter to the head. It's marginal. As I said, it's only a few % of the flex of the shaft, but you know,
I've never hit the stealth. I thought I'd be able to see the face more than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I think more people expected on the first gen for it to look a bit more
This looks
offensive
upright.
than it does. The line around the toe. So
This looks a lot more upright than.
a part of it is you've got the internal face. So how the line around the toe and the markings can affect how
Yeah.
it sits or how it looks to sit. So because you can see that bit more of the face, it's I think more noticeable. So you're going to pick it out a bit more. A little more open. Good contact. Good spin.
Felt nice. Felt good.
Question: if a player's left-hand dominant and tends to hang on, i.e. grip tight, would you adjust grip size to reduce that tension? If the grip size is appropriate in the first place, then it's not necessarily something you do. It might be grip material can help just to soften the tension a little bit and relax the hands a little bit more. It can be that it's just, you know, sometimes you're going bigger can actually get you hanging on a little bit more again. So it's ball speed very good off this head. Ball speed is very good off this head. Spins a solid place. Is it erring very slightly more open? I think what we're seeing between the two is that the I279 it's minimal between them for distance, as in less than a yard.
Between
that and the ping.
Okay.
The only question I have on this one is it just hanging a little bit more open when it breaks down? It's got good ball speed. The data's good off it. These two heads are the two from a data point of view, looking at launch and spins and where they sit, that are producing the best results. Some of it boils down to we've got a little bit more, potentially a little bit more control of moving the centre of gravity around on the ping because you can move that back weight. Yeah, it's a tight call. It's whether that one with the weight separated more wants to get right a little bit more.
This is not because I had a preconceived idea that I might like G430, but it does feel a more solid strike.
Yeah.
And it feels more stable through impact, and it feels like I could aim a little bit right and try and turn it a bit more.
Get a couple more with that,
okay.
Just a bit more comparison.
Oh man.
That's okay. We're getting to the kind of last couple of swings with it. So I mean, actually, you produced again, and this is what we're seeing across the board with the different heads, or particularly this.
I've got away with that.
Yeah, off centre have actually retained. It's just dropped ball speed, but the flight stayed very, very.
Off centre. That was nearly off face.
Yeah, pretty high and slightly toe side. So yeah, ball speed's dropped by 6-7 miles an hour, but because it launched higher, spun low.
Yeah.
Maintained distance pretty well.
Okay.
One question about what's the approximate lead time on 2023 releases coming in February the 18th. Well, by the 18th, the release date for TaylorMade, where we're allowed to start shipping products, the 17th of February. Callaway have pushed back to 24th. So by the time you come in on the 18th, this is to Matthew Phillips. By the time you come in on the 18th, as good as everything's going to be out. So
Another one with this, or
yeah, it's both this and the Ping are performing well. This is at a point, there's that little in it that we have to take into account. At this point, you have to start taking into account personal preference, because it's the club you're going to have to pull out the bag every single time. So from a performance point of view, both very, very similar. I mean, there's literally less than a yard in it. So it kind of boils down to what do you want to see in the bag? And it sounds, having done all the data and things, all the we want to dive in and get the best performing club from a data standpoint, but they're both so similar that you have to say, well, what's your personal preference?
the Stealth 2, what is it? Is it the Plus? Or the Standard?
No, okay. The Standard, yeah.
It feels too volatile. The face for me feels a little bit too lively.
It's quite a different sound with the carbon face. So it is a very different note. And there was one other comment that I missed. Using Bryson's example, how could you manage such a large diameter grip and still be consistent other than these are pro? Bryson's technique is a bit different. He puts it into the palm of his hand. So rather than being sat in the fingers like that and underneath there, Bryson puts it into that part of the hand, so almost down, so that it can form a straight line through from forearm through the shaft, because he doesn't want the wrists hinging. So he goes bigger to fill out that bit of the hand, so that it actually allows him to grip it into the palm. And that's why he's got that very unique, very big body rotation move through. So that's how he makes it work. So it is a different technique altogether. It's a very uniform plane, and he's just using, for better as you argue, brute strength to generate the speed rather than the hands and the lag and whip that historically, it creates a little bit more rotation. So for the amount of speed he's putting in, technically the face is more stable. But that's a combination of, it's the technique he's using that allows that to work for him.
No, Matt, it didn't go as far left as I thought it was going to go more left with that.
With that
what
last
looked like the toe up.
Yeah. So a lot of very quickly before James swings, looking at the toe up, because on this one, it's got quite a rounded toe line here. That makes the club look more upright because we see that bit. Whereas on another head that doesn't have it, if I can get this out of here, it's not as obvious. So, to look down on, you're not going to see as much of it. That is highlighted because it comes in from the toe very slightly. That's the bit you focus on. So it looks more toe up. But all, an important factor as to whether you're looking forward to using the club or not. So slightly open face, but again, ball speed, spins nice and stable. A little bit trappy, a little bit open face. They got a little bit in front of, but 274 right side of fairway isn't a bad miss. But it is a different note. It's quite a different sound for this head.
No, that was a. I'm thinking too
That's
much.
why he's trying to work the shot more. Yeah. You can
Yeah.
see that in the timing through. Yeah.
I didn't. It just felt like a 3/4 backswing.
Yeah, it goes back to what are we trying to achieve from the club for you as well. In principle, you could say, well, is the Stealth 2 going to be very, very slightly longer on the best hit? Possibly, but it's only a couple of yards. If
The amount I played, I'm really not bothered about that.
It's not that big a deal.
It's not all about distance, Matt. Although if I had his power, it would be.
Yeah. That's something he says. There are days he'd love to be 270 in the fairway every time, or 370 and 40 yards offline with not much of a miss. Yeah, better arm action through the ball there. Yeah, so got a little bit inside it and spun it up a little bit. This is just sort of strike point really. A little bit down, a little open. So that's just flared the spin up a little bit. So that's where there's a bit of extra spin out of it. So, but that's action. That's working down and across and chopping it a little bit. Whereas we know the earlier swings, the fresher swings, we definitely get into a fatigue point here. The fresher swings were a little bit up on it and squaring through. So. And there's ball speed up. This is probably going to overdraw only a little bit. And then we're back into the 279 slight draw. And that for me, that's one of the better balls. That's probably the best ball speed we've seen so far today. And that's where I think between the two, if you just trust that head a little bit more, there's no negative to it. You're getting as good a results out of both heads from a distance standpoint. If that feels a bit safer, you're going to trust it a little bit more.
Switch back to the old one. Not that I'm going back. Should I do that?
Well, it's the same shaft.
I mean, look,
so it's really going to be, the main difference is, the only reason this is not performing is this bit, is the bit on the end.
There's no point, because ultimately I've lost confidence with this head because of its ability to, it feels like I'm getting that on a...
Yeah, it's a less feeling
strike.
head. It's more exacting on strike, and so with the two heads, this one just and especially out of that toe part of the head, out of the toe part of the head with the Maverick, it's high toe, which is your miss, is where it knuckles and loops, and so that's really the difference. So what's quite good is that we're back at the same shaft. You can see how well he swung that. Half a degree up, half from the inside, close the face a degree in a bit of a draw. It still swings really well, and so the bit that's losing you the trust and the confidence is the head. So it really is a case of let's get a head where there's naturally a little bit more weight in the back, gives you a bit more forgiveness. But that's going to mean putting it in play more regularly.
Yeah.
So, and if you trust it more, you're going to get that relaxation.
I need to remember the objective of the session was not distance; it was finding a club that I could comfortably, play twice a month.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
little bit of a warm-up session and find fairways, because I'm pretty good with my irons.
Yeah, and the thing is,
But
actually,
I'm not scoring if I'm in the rough left.
we look at
right.
look at what relative to that shot.
Let me just the computer. Bear with me. Let me switch.
If I
2 seconds.
put this on an optimizer. I'm just going to put this on the, see if we can find the screen on. Yeah, so if we put it on the optimizer, that last one came out a little on the lower side, but you can see for total distance, that's optimized. So for that swing, club speed, angle of attack, that's your optimal batch of data, all in the blue. Okay, if we go to carry in total, yes, you could probably pick up 5 or 6 yards more carry. If you got the launch angle up to 12.5 and spun it at 2.2, you'd pick up 5, 6, 7 yards of carry. But if you're not playing a lot, the club speed's going to be down a little bit. But that's also where, going back to one of the questions that was asked earlier, if you haven't played for 3 months, then we need to make sure the club's there and stable enough for when you are playing a little bit more regularly. If you pick up 1 or 2 miles an hour club speed, you're going to pick up another 5 yards in carry. But 280 in play on a good ball flight regularly isn't short. The problem is we relate ourselves to the tour pros who we see out there, and you see 300 yards plus the whole time, and the reality of it is that you're playing on average twice a month. Well, no, probably not once a month. It's probably your average.
It comes in
kind of clumps.
Yeah. So
and for 103, 104 club speed, which is where you are today, 280 is a good distance. Yeah, it's not short. If you're any par forward, unless you're at a monstrously long course, you're going in. You're not you're not having to get a head cover off.
No.
So anything approaching 300 yards is long. That is, for amateur golf, that is long. It's just that there are more young bears out there that hit it miles. And it's not just it's not just a comment on Matt. We're seeing more and more club speeds creeping up, but they're tending to be in the younger golfers coming through because they've learned the game as a strength and a distance game first, and then learn to control it. When we started playing 30 years ago, it wasn't that. It was a different game altogether. So kind of have to say, anything over 100 miles an hour club speed is strong. For an amateur player, that is a strong club speed. And that puts you 265, 270 plus. And anything extra you can gain out of it, great. But it's a good set of data.
Okay. So if you're late to join this, we've gone from my old gamer, which was a Maverick Sub-Zero, Ventus 5 stiff, Ventus Blue 5 stiff, purely for getting more consistency rather than ball speed, and we've ended up with G430,
10.5.
10.5.
Put the weight into the heel so it doesn't. The more we put the weight out into the toe, the more it's going to gear open, which is James's initial miss. And then if you do that, you're then going to overcompensate. So
10.5 with a measured loft of roughly.
It's going to be around. I'll measure it once we've sort of finished filming, because that's off camera and that's not very exciting to watch. Measured loft's going to be around 11.5.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really getting that stability of the head, getting stability across the face, which the Maverick doesn't give you right now.
Okay, length we've
and
got.
And then this will be 44 3/4 to 45.
Okay, and swing weight.
Just under D1.
Okay.
So nuts and bolts of the club, very, very, very well the same. It's just it's the head dynamics that have been hurting you really, and so because that head is a little more sensitive to where your miss is, that head gets the volatile hooky one. It makes you feel like more's going wrong than it is. That head's going to hang on and kind of hold the flight a little safer. So the shots that with your Maverick loop left, knuckle and go into the deep rough left, that's going to hold on to the left side of the fairway. So it's just a much safer ball flight. Yeah.
Lovely.
So more confidence.
I think we are pretty much done. Any other questions? We've been entertaining for an hour and 38 minutes.
Good going.
Yeah. Lovely. Not really much else to add other than thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to do the usual thing. Please do subscribe, like, hit the notification icon so you don't miss any of our lives. And in particular, this weekend, we're heading to Orlando to the trade show. All of our content will be on our YouTube channel. Thank you, Simon.
Good going.
You know what you're
well
doing.
lasted out. Well, it was. It's almost quite nice that it is what it was.
Some last minute requests coming through. No, I can't sing, and no, I don't know any jokes.
It's a good entertainment, and hope you find many fairways. So you see,
I hope so
the
too.
support on the channel for you. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Right,
Thank
I'm
you
going
very
to dip
much.
off camera and hit the cut button. But thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. See you from the other side of the pond. Yeah.